All right, welcome back, my friends. And there is a lot of automotive news going on right now in the world, and has been for a while. I have picked out some of my favorite of the news articles that either I just think are interesting or kind of impactful, and we're going to run through them today briefly and not terribly in depth on them, just to kind of talk about it, make sure you're aware, and to get my opinions out there. And we're going to start with eight different items. We've got a company that lost hundreds of millions of dollars in a quarter, but still somehow managed to make a profit. Brampton has been idled by Stellantis because they don't know what they're going to build there. There's an ACwJ conspiracy online. There's a new bankrupt manufacturer that ties in with Tesla, has climbed to average in something, and Tesla has been asked by a group in Japan to invest in Nissan. And because Nissan is the gift that just keeps on giving, number 7 is that Honda had a snarky comment about a potential merger with Nissan. And we're going to finish with more Stellantis news and the kind of questions they're asking potential CEOs. So let's jump in with number 1, and that is Rivian. Now, this manufacturer builds a couple of really cool vehicles, but year over year, they really didn't have any growth in 2024. And in the fourth quarter of last year, they lost over $700 million. Now, the good news is they have been slashing costs. They can't get enough products out there. They're still waiting to finish up a new manufacturing center so they can release the R2. But they made a profit. They made about $160-ish million in a quarter where they lost $744. Gross profit, $100 some odd million. And the reason they did it, the reason they could do it, was not on the sales and the profitability of their products, but by selling regulatory credits. Now, I don't proclaim to be any kind of huge expert on this issue, but generally speaking, if you are a manufacturer and you're releasing, say, too much carbon over here and you're going to get fined for it, you can buy credits from another manufacturer. And since Rivian makes EVs and technically releases zero carbon from the tailpipe, they sell these credits to other companies, and that's where they've made a ton of money. Same strategy Tesla used for years. I think they still sell them, I'm not really sure, but that was part of what kept Tesla above water for many years. So Rivian, I think they have a very bright future. I think their styling is pretty cool, and I think they're going to continue to expand. And as context, that $700 some odd million of losses in a quarter, that's half what it was the same quarter the year before. So they're reducing their losses as they go. I think they have a pretty bright future. Number 2, Stellantis has idled the Brampton factory. Now, this is interesting because they were originally going to start production and then they pushed it back, and now they've pushed it back again, and they're not even sure how long the pushback is going to be for. Part of this is good leadership from Stellantis, but also while they are waiting for a new leader at Stellantis. Originally, Brampton was going to be an electric Jeep Compass. With the uncertainty in America between not only tariffs, but what are they going to do about EV rebates, things like that, they're not sure that an electrified Compass is necessarily the right product. Now, needless to say, the union is up in arms about this. They're very concerned what this means for the workers, but Stellantis, to their credit, has come back and say, hey, we are still dedicated to Brampton. We're still dedicated to providing the jobs that they've promised, but they just need to take a deep breath. And so the fact is that they're pausing it because they don't know where the market's going. At the same time, they're not quite sure what they want to build there. Probably it will be an electrified Compass, some sort of hybrid, maybe just a gas-powered one. Maybe they continue to move down the road towards providing an EV one. We don't really know. But once again, Brampton and Stellantis is in the news. Number 3, and my favorite today, an ACwJ conspiracy. So ACwJ sells trucks in America. Commercial level trucks, class N, class F, I guess, also level trucks. And they are building a new factory down near Greenville, South Carolina. For reference, that's kind of close to where the BMW factory is. They bought some land and they're going to be building. And it's interesting because what they're doing is they're not going to have a conventional automotive assembly line. It's going to be a flexible line. And their intention is the ability to change what they're building and change what powertrains are going in, and on a very flexible level, change what they're building to reflect the market conditions and what orders they're actually getting. Well, this has led some people to say, wait a minute, this is an opportunity for Isuzu to come back to America with a truck for us, for consumers, because if they've got a really flexible plant and they've got their, I believe it's called the D-Max, they've got their Colorado Ford Ranger Tacoma sized truck out there in the world, would it be hard to start building it here? They don't have to set up a whole new distribution. They could just sell it through commercial dealers. Now, I'm not sure I buy any of this. I'm not sure how flexible an assembly line has to be to build a Class N truck over here that's good for, I don't know, 7.5 tons, and then turn around and build essentially a Chevy Colorado right next to it. And I'm not sure how many people like you and me would be willing to go to a commercial truck dealer to buy a pickup. But in truck-crazed America, if they could bring it in at the right price, I think the opportunity is there. This might be a very low-cost way for them to build some trucks, even if they're only selling 10,000 a year. They could still at least be participating in the market. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the current styling of the Isuzu trucks, but darn, that would be a compelling product for me. We'll see what happens, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. Number 4, bankruptcy. Nikola, the full-size semi-truck manufacturer, they've declared bankruptcy. I'm a little surprised at this one. I thought they had a really cool product, and I thought they were doing okay. And it's a little easy to jump on this and say, well, it's a failure of battery electric trucks. And I've got a lot to say about this real quick, because I've said before on the channels that I believe in a mixed fuel future. I believe in a future where you and I have the flexibility to buy diesel, to buy gasoline, to buy hybridized, and to buy battery electric, and yes, hydrogen electric vehicles. But specifically for trucks, I think the hydrogen route is really, really a strong and compelling possibility, and certainly for long-haul truckers. Maybe around town, electrified works fine, but Nikola also offered a hydrogen electric truck, which had something like 200 more miles of range than their fully battery electric, and could be refueled in about 20 minutes versus about 90 minutes for their battery electric one. And I question, I've never looked it up, but I question how much weight and how much cost does a fully battery semi weigh compared to a diesel one. Now, they're not the only manufacturer that was doing this. Scania over in Europe is doing it. I'm sure others are as well, but of course we've got Tesla and their semi. And we're going to come back to them in just a second. So I'm a little surprised that Nikola failed with having also that hydrogen electric option out there. But we need a national focus to say, hey, if we want to have a hydrogen future, we need to actually invest in it, and let's focus on the big trucks first. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful compromise along the way. That being said, I still don't see the point in a fully battery electric semi. Consider the Hummer. That is a $100,000 truck, and it's essentially a full-size truck. It's not a semi-sized, and it weighs over 9,000 pounds. How much does an electrified semi weigh and how much comes from a battery that doesn't give it the range really it needs for, let's say, cross-country stuff, which ties back into Tesla. Their Semi, they released it 2 years ago, over 2 years ago now. And my understanding, the last information I could find is that they've only delivered about 140 of them. They are way, way behind schedule. And obviously, this is not a big profit center for Tesla. And what's very telling to me is, when is the last time you heard Tesla talk about their semis? They have pivoted again, and they're talking about a less expensive vehicle based probably on the Model 3 coming out this year. They've talked about their new two-door cab that has no steering wheel, and they're talking about autonomous driving. But honestly, I can't remember the last time I heard somebody talk about the Tesla Semi. I think that it has proven to be troublesome with a very low uptake, probably too expensive, and maybe they're having difficulties manufacturing it or possibly sourcing enough batteries for it. I don't know. But Nicola going belly up tells me that maybe the market for battery electric semis is just not there. But then we get to stick with Tesla for a little while, because J.D. Power has come out with their 2025 dependability study. And that is a 3-year study of products that have been on the market. Now, things are a little bit worse, and they made a really interesting point that the cars right now that are about 3 years old and are going to be coming on the used car market, these are the vehicles that were being built back after COVID shutdowns and all the supply chain constraints. So you had a moment in time where manufacturers were just literally going to the Lego store to buy parts to put them on a car just to have something to sell. And now they're coming up on the market. And that's, of course, after the dealerships got a hold of them and put a $5,000 markup on everything. Those are the ones that are coming out there. But Tesla has been, let's say, famous for having really poor quality. As much as they're loved by their users, they haven't always been at the top of the line. And they don't allow surveys of Tesla owners in certain states. So their results are somewhat unofficial, but at least J.D. Power still looks at it and tries to place them, see where the problems per 1,000 cars shows. It's interesting, kind of, that Lexus is still near the top, but it's surprising how well Buick continues to rank, and Chevy. Ford manages to be just barely below average, but some of their press releases say, hey, look how much we've improved. And what's interesting is Tesla has climbed their way from the bottom to almost average. Good on ya. So again, sticking with Tesla, news came out on Automotive News that there is a group over in Japan, one member of which was a former prime minister, and they have asked Tesla to make an investment in Nissan, to become an equity partner in it. And of course, once the stock market heard of this, Nissan shares went up on the news, and I don't know that I see any kind of real benefit there for Tesla. Nissan makes gas cars and makes essentially no hybrid cars here in America. Tesla, I don't see how it's a benefit to them, other than the article points out that Tesla could structure this in a way where they gain access to Nissan factories here in America, so they could boost American production and help bypass any of those Chinese tariffs that are coming. Might be something there. I don't personally believe it, but there might be something there. And now we get to stick with Nissan a little bit longer, because Honda was asked if they would consider getting back into negotiations with Nissan on the merger. Now let's recap here real quick. They decided they were going to talk about it. News was great back in December. They were going to have a release, talk to the public about it in February. And somewhere end of January, February, Honda came back to the table and said, hold on, we don't want to merge. We want to take you over, and Honda people are going to be in charge. And the board of directors said, "Nyet." Now, I did a whole video on this, and I believe that Nissan is rushing towards a financial cliff, I believe based on lease obligations out there. And the board of directors believes that they have got this just crown jewel, and they're too big to fail, right? And so I think their hubris is their downfall. But when Honda was asked, would you be considering going back and talking to Nissan again, restarting these merger talks, Honda had what I consider a very snarky remark. And it was, yes, we would, if the CEO of Nissan steps down. Now, Japanese culture is about being polite, being respectful. And Honda was snubbed. The CEO and the board of directors snubbed them and said, we're not giving up our power to decide Nissan's fate. It was our power that got us to this point, but we're not going to be under you. So I love Honda's response here. Be like, yeah, we'll talk to you, but that guy needs to go. Love it. And then finally, we're going to end with more Stellantis news. And I found this one super, super interesting, that now that Tavares is gone, they are interviewing people to be the CEO of Stellantis. And we all know that Stellantis is huge and sprawling, and we all question how they can manage all of their brands. You've got brands like Lancia that contribute 1% of the entire Stellantis group's sales. You've got Fiat, and you've got Citroën, and you've got Opel, which all play in the same mid-level market. You've got Peugeot. Jeep is 15% of Stellantis' sales. So something has to be done to simplify this. Now, whether they spin some off, whether they sell them, whether they just close them, or I think DS could be wrapped back into another brand. But the article said that when the people who are heading up the search for the new CEO, this is what they ask them. They ask him, what is their brand vision for Stellantis? And it's very interesting to me. They're not coming in with, this is what we want to do, and then judging the CEO on whether it matches up with what the board of directors wants. What they're doing is they're asking CEOs, what is their vision? Have they created one at all? And are they tough enough to make the tough decisions and to justify it? I am, again, an optimistic person, but I love that answer. This isn't just a, we like you, what would you do? And being accepting of a CEO candidate coming in and be like, well, I would set up a high-level group, a committee to talk about it. No, they want somebody to come in with an opinion so they know what they're getting and the direction the company is going to go. Stellantis has a long, long way to go to health, but I love that answer. So that's it. I'm going to wrap up the news here today. Just a few quick hits along the way, and let me know what you think below. Thanks for being here, y'all.